This video is going to show you solo Grandmaster Nightfall getting platinum rank for the Lightblade. For those just want to see that, and skip the timestamps. Over that I can show you the build, etc. and the weapons. First of all, the weapons. So we're using exotic bow Wishender, a arc glaive Nezarec Whisper, which is craftable by the way. And we have the Hothead Adept rocket launcher with auto and holster explosive light. Explosive light being the big one. So if you can get a good rocket with explosive light, it's like the best choice, I believe, for the final boss. Machine gun's good with Strand, but I still think a rocket's going to be better for most. The glaive's required for this run. You've got to put a glaive on if you're going to do the strategy that I'm going to show you in the run itself. We're using the exotic boot Star Eater scales, which overcharges our super when we pick up orbs of power, and we do more damage, and it stacks with Strand stuff, right? Our fragments are Thread of Mind, Generation, Continuity, Binding. It's the Shackle build, Shackle Grenade. We're using Marksman's Dodge because it's a quicker cooldown. Widow's Silk and Saren's Slam. Mods are just what you see on screen. There'll be more information in the run itself. So with the old Lightblade solo for Season of the Deep, what's it like compared to previously? I would argue it's probably harder now than it was when Arc Titan was insane. It still is insane, but it's not as insane as it was when Storm Grenades were meta. I believe Lightblade to be easier then than it is now. It is for me personally. But Lightblade isn't as difficult as it first launched because of resilience changes, etc. But it's still difficult to people. You don't see many solos done on Lightblade. There are here and there, right? But there's not like tons of them because people just haven't got the patience for this. But I played Lightblade enough this week and learned a ton about it because I never really was savvy with Lightblade. I'd only ever soloed this a few times beforehand, right? So I was never savvy with it, but I've learned a lot of information about it, and I'd never ran Strand in this because we didn't have Strand obviously when it first came out and stuff like that. So Strand was what I was most interested in. It's also Strand Surge right now, which it will not be Strand Surge probably when you watch this or reset today, because it's Arc Surge. It'll be Arc Surge and Void. That's fine. You might just want to do Night Stalker run then, or Void Walker Warlock. Or you can still do Strand without Strand Surge up. It's not required. It just makes it a little bit more consistent when you're dealing with barriers and stuff, right? But what we're doing here is we're killing the two initial barriers. The reason for this is so that you still maintain platinum rank for the boss fight. People are going to be hella confused with this because people skip the first two champs, right? Because when you've run through the hallway, they despawn. Yes, we know this, but what's the point, right? Because you can skip two barriers. Any two barriers you want to skip, you can skip. You have two free tokens actually. So you can decide which barriers you want to skip. Why skip the first open and two champs? They're easy. What's not easy is the two last barrier champions on the final boss fight, which we are going to skip. But we'll still get platinum rating because we took the two initial champs that everyone else skips. You need to do what I've just done, unless you will not get platinum rank. If you're not bothered about platinum rank, then just skip them and skip the final two barriers. It's up to you, it doesn't matter. But I don't recommend that. You're soloing it anyways. It's going to be a long solo. You may as well get platinum rank while you're doing it. And you may as well do it the way I'm showing you, if you're struggling with Lightblade. So yeah, don't skip the first two barriers. That's golden rule number one, right? When we get to this room here, there is two barriers, one Lightblade Warrior, Sentinel. How you want to do this generally is take down one of the barriers first, but I'm actually going to do it slightly different because on this run I changed my strategy up. Because the difficult thing isn't barriers, because you have Wishender. Wishender does crazy damage. What the difficult thing in a run like this is the Guardians. So we're going to use a super, because we have one to spend, right? So we'll crush the ghost whilst we're in super, because if you don't know with Roman supers, you get super damage resistance. That's what I call it. There's no official name for it, but you get more resistance whilst you're in a Roman super. This stacks with T10 resilience. It stacks with everything that you can think of. So you are tankier in a Roman super. And I believe Roman supers to be king for Lightblade because of the pressures that are put on you at certain times. See, Lightblade's really weird as a GM, because there's times in the GM that it is literally easier than Fallen Saber, but then there's times where it's the hardest GM in existence. It's just how it is. It's the combat experience of it, because of how the boss works, which I'll talk more about when we get there. I'll just try to focus on what I'm doing at this moment in time. So now we're dealing with the barriers. Don't kill too many acolytes. You need to understand the spawns of how the Lightblade warriors work. So we have killed the first one, but there's another 2 to come. Another one spawns. The requirements for that spawn is how many acolytes you've killed. So the acolytes will hide. You need to understand that they'll hide. Try not to do too much ag clear. You will be punished for this, because if you do too much ag clear, the barrier won't be killed, the one I'm shooting now, and then there'll be a Lightblade warrior spawn on top of you whilst there's still a barrier alive. Don't let that happen at all costs. If it happens, that's fine. Doesn't matter. This initial room's going to take you longer. It's just how it is. You'll end up having to back up in the hallway and do all that sort of stuff. But for the most part, if you play as you see, I think for somebody trying to copy this run, they need to really watch like the majority of it to really understand it, because you've got to really understand everything. It's so easy to just die in Lightblade. You can give it no respect, and all of a sudden you're dead instantly. There's so much stuff that one-shots you. A suppressor grenade will one-shot you because you've got double arc resist, concussive dampen on, which you need. Don't bother trying to put void resist on. I know that would maybe stop a one-shot of a suppressor grenade, but the better choice is to just dodge the suppressor grenade. Right? You need to really play the Lightblade warriors like Dark Souls. Everything they do, you must dodge. Everything you do, you must do it by textbook. If you don't, you're dead. It's really as simple as that. This is the final phase, which you get a bunch of Thrall that spawn in as well. This is where we're backing up, right? Because there's two arc shielded knights that are only melee based, which they will push first. Now you need to be frightened of these knights. These knights are ridiculous. I have lost a couple of runs this week to being one-shot by them. Like their melee sword, right? Their lunge distance is increased on GM, as opposed to Adept, Hero, and all. Well, there isn't Adept now, is there? But as opposed to Hero and Legend, right? So they get closer to you than you think. Again, you've got to start to play in this Dark Souls mode, Remnant 2 mode, where you cannot let them hit you at any point. You will definitely die if you do. Now, I'm using the glaive here to my advantage. You can see my energy, it's like 70%. If you see that ring, if you don't know how glaives work, when you build up your energy, you build up frontal shield. Remember, it's not a dome, it's not a bubble. The glaive is only a frontal shield, so things that hit you at left and right or behind you, AoE damage, it won't really work unless that AoE damage is in front of the glaive. Then you will guard against it. So remember, it's just a frontal shield. It's like a Roman barricade that goes with you, kind of thing, if you think about it. It's not like a mini bubble, all right? So you can only use it, the damage is coming directly to you. Works perfectly for Sentinels, because when they do their Captain America thing, you just put up your shield and look at the guard resistance. It just bounces right off it. You take a little bit of damage, but not too much. So look, I can easily deal with this Lightblade warrior whilst he's in his super. Now you can't shackle them. You can't. A standard grenade shackle will not shackle a Lightblade warrior, but a super shackle will shackle them. Isn't that weird, right? I don't know why. It's confused me for a while. It's the same with tormentors as well. You can't shackle a tormentor, an ultra one at least, But you can shackle them with the super abilities like the Strand Titan, or the same thing with the what you call it, with the whatever the super's called for this strand. But I think I have the fragment on that helps me do that. I forget the name of it, but it emits a suspend and burst or whatever. Right, that particular fragment you want on because it's just so useful, and it's plus 10 resilience. I highly recommend that. I know there's other sort of fragments you can build out to like instantly reload your weapon and maybe do stuff like that, but you don't need all that stuff. Not this season anyways. Next season Strand's going to be in a different shape. I don't know what the meta is going to be then. I don't really care to speculate because it's not here. I know people love to speculate on stuff, but it doesn't matter. You're wasting your time. Until that comes out, until the balance patch comes out, you don't really know what the hell's going to go on with it. So don't worry about speculating it. It really bothers me when people do. Don't worry about it. Play the game as it is right now today. Shackle's still strong. So this GM is sort of exclusive to this season, yeah. But obviously we'll be able to do Lightblade again if it comes up. I don't think it'll be up next season though. They don't seem to do back-to-back seasons of Lightblade coming up. But we'll just sort of see what happens with that. So I haven't really spoke about why I've got my Sparrow back there, right? So a while back, I would say it's probably Lightblade, Witch Queen era, whenever it was, they made it so your Sparrow does not despawn. Remember they used to despawn. Most players will remember they used to despawn. They don't anymore, obviously. But the reason why I'm stating this obvious fact is because we can take advantage of that and pull our Sparrow all the way here. But you need to go into the public zone, like you saw me do 2 minutes earlier on the video. I went all the way back, summon my Sparrow, because you can't summon your Sparrow in the strike, but you can in a public zone, and you bring your Sparrow all the way to this location. You must do this. This is the best strategy, hands down, for doing the swamp. There are many different ways of doing the swamp, the legit way, or using a super to run through the entire thing. All that stuff is trash strats compared to this strat. Get your Sparrow on the tomb ship. Leave the Sparrow there. Don't even look at the Sparrow. Don't even blink at it. Don't let the ads see this. The ads aren't going to see your Sparrow. Don't worry. So just start bowling the enemies from here. You saw where I've stood. There's a left and right option. There's a pedestal for here as well. We'll do some range damage. Wish End is going to one-shot most ads. Right? We can deal with some more enemies, but ultimately we're going to jump down to where the cup is on this side here. It could have been right and left is identical each side. We're then going to clear any more acolytes left up. Right, make sure all acolytes are taken down. Also the one where the orb dunk is on left and right, make sure they are taken out. You increase the risk of dying if you don't do that. So every little thing that I'm doing is reducing risk of death. Don't get me wrong, this isn't really hard, this little bit. Lightblade's easy up until the boss. I would say Lightblade's easy up until phase 2 of the boss. Phase 2, or midway through phase 2, when the boss gets half HP, that's when the boss fight becomes ridiculous. Solo-wise, it really does become ridiculous at that point. But like I say, Lightblade in itself, to learn it, it's very much like Glassware. Glassware being a really easy run until you get to the boss. Then you got to know your stuff. You got to know enemy spawns. You need to know everything in advance. You're not going to get lucky. You need to know everything in advance. This is a skip here for the orb dunks. So be careful on where you go. And I don't want to set off these Lightblade warriors at all. So I've even jumped back down to stop them popping their super. If they do pop the super though, I hear the audio cue. I see it on the left hand side. Right, so I'm going to do that. You can do the same what I've just done for the other side if you want, where you go back and do all the jumps, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to pop my super. So look, you can actually shackle. See what I'm saying? So you can still shackle them while you're in your super. I think it's because of the fragment, the suspend and burst thing, whatever the damn fragment is. I can't think of it, the name of it, and someone's going to tell me this is the name. I'm going to be like, yeah, it was on the tip of my tongue. But that fragment, put it on, because it's just useful to be able to shackle a Lightblade warrior in your super like that. But again, as I say, a normal standard shackle won't do that for you. For whatever reason, I don't know why. So we'll jump back on the tomb ship. Your sparrow's on there. Jump off the tomb ship as soon as possible. The reason for this is because you don't want the acolytes or the wizard to start dealing damage at you while you're on the tomb ship, because this is going to destroy your sparrow. So you're playing a game of protect your sparrow right now. It's a game of protect your sparrow at all costs. That means diverting attention away from the sparrow and on you entirely. That's why we're doing this bit. I know you can cheese it. I know you can just emo on the tomb ship, right, and do all that. But that wouldn't work for my strategy with the sparrow, because then the acolytes would throw nades on the sparrow. There's a risk of it, and I don't want to play those odds. For the sake of an extra 2 minutes, I'll just let the tomb ship guide my sparrow to the end, which your sparrow won't despawn. Like I said, sparrows never despawn now, which is actually one of the best changes they've done, especially for Lightblade. It just makes it's a quality of life thing, and it makes every time you do the swamp a 99% success rate of getting through it. We want to build up a super as well, so make any orbs while you can. We've got kinetic siphon on that, which I highly recommend you put that on your helmet, because our build lends itself to doing that, because you've got an explosive light rocket. I highly recommend you have a Hothead with it. You don't need to have an adept one. Right, you don't have to have an adept. The gains between an adept and a standard Hothead are minuscule. So, in other words, if you haven't got an explosive light explosive light Hothead, go and roll the dice at Zavala, because you can turn in some engrams to focus them, and it's quite cheap. It's not that much, like for the standard variant, and the chance of getting explosive light shouldn't be that rare. And I feel as though most people have this gun anyways, because they farmed a lot of it when it was within GM rotation. And if you don't, even then, you can still make it work. Go with some other rocket then. Maybe field prep clown cartridge. I was considering that. Up to yourself. But explosive light I believe to be best in slot because of how the boss works with orbs. So I highly recommend it. Let's take out the remainder adds. So obviously we've got star rated scales on now. That perk won't proc unless we've got our supercharged. Then we start picking up orbs. But we're coming up to a point where we're going to be able to make a lot of orbs anyways. So we'll get our 6 stack of explosive light, and we'll get our 4 stack of feast of light. It's only 4 orbs. It's not 8 orbs like it used to be, of course. So with this little section, again, you need to protect your sparrow at all costs. At all costs, it must be protected. You can do self-inflicted damage to sparrows. 2 Wish Ender shots on GM difficulty will destroy a sparrow. Now you need to understand Wish Ender, right? It has throughput. It's like Sleeper. It goes through an ad to another ad. It's a straight line through ads. So don't aim anywhere near your sparrow. Now my sparrow placement was bad. It's in the middle of the ship. This is literally the worst place it could have been. Left or right would have been better, but the sparrow does move when the tomb ship does. So there's a bit of RNG to it. It is what it is. It doesn't matter. Just don't. Whatever you do, you can afford to hit it once, but not twice. Now, which sparrow you have helps as well, right? Because always on time is tankier than your average sparrow, but it's not required. If you follow all the rules, you could do it with a blue sparrow, a green sparrow. It wouldn't matter. Obviously, you're not going to do that, but you get the point. We've made a ton of orbs, so we're going to go and pick those up. There's one hive thrall hiding. Don't let the thrall get close to the sparrow, because they can actually blow it up as well. So if anything, just take them with the glaive. Don't let too many thrall hit you as well. So this is how you do the swamp section. So you need to go off the tomb ship early. Do a side dodge before you hit the ground so you don't take any damage. This negates damage, fall off. Then just sparrow your entire way. Once you get past the first raider, which is very easy to do, you're pretty much done. It's impossible to die at this point. The fairies won't explode. They won't chase you either. So you're pretty much done. You can just sparrow the entire way. Your Way of Darkness is removed once you get past the gates. You're then free to chill out again. This section here isn't too bad at all. We'll get an initial stun with a shackle. My goal here is to take out all the enemies, not to deal damage to the Unstoppable. That was merely just to stop him from shooting down this lane. And mainly just to bait these Ravagers. Because they can freeze you, they are a threat. Don't let that happen. So we'll get some stuns with the glaive, just showing that off. Honestly, I really do think... How many times have we had Unstoppable Glaive over the seasons? Bungie's really trying hard to make you use this weapon. Not only that, you don't even need to aim down sights with the gun. You don't need to aim the gun. Like a hand cannon. Which is kind of unfair on hand cannons if you think about it, but they're trying their absolute best to make sure that these weapons are getting used in endgame content. The damage resistance you get from the frontal shield, right? The output damage they do, the great utility perks they have. They know that this weapon type is unpopular in the community, but they're doing everything they can to make people use them. The reason why they're unpopular is because they're misunderstood. There's no information in-game, there's no tooltips to tell you what a glaive does. So the only way you would know what a glaive does is if you watch somebody else tell you what it is, what they do. So people don't really understand it. People just want a flashy gun. They want like a fusion rifle or a grenade launcher. If it's not one of those weapons, if it's not a new toy, they're not interested. But you need to honestly try glaives. You need to know how they work in endgame. They're not good on planets. But who gives a toss about a planet? You can use any weapon on a planet. You can one-shot any enemy with any weapon. Doesn't matter. So you're not going to get utility there, but you're going to get utility on GMs and dungeons. Especially with the double special meta at the minute, which obviously is going to change. So you need to know how glaives work. Right, and definitely be crafting them as well, because there's a couple of glaives that you can craft now with some enhanced perks. It should be one of your goals for endgame content to have a good glaive, preferably one of each element. So this section here, there's some shriekers, double shrieker, 2 ultra ogres, and then 2 unstoppable champions, 1 scorn, 1 hive. So what I'm trying to do here is take advantage of when the shriekers are open. They'll be open based on the radius from where the Scorn champion is. They'll only open if there's a target to shoot close, right? So it's one of those taking advantage of an opportunity. Once you start hearing them shoot, try and get some wish ender shots in, because later on they'll give you an issue. Well, not an issue, but there'll be a pain to deal with later on. Not so much a pain, but they're just a bit of an annoyance to deal with later on. So if you can get them now, it's going to save work for later. I recommend you try and deal with the Unstoppable first, right, while all the ads are sort of working on the next Scorn champ. See, fun fact, if you kill the Scorn champ quick enough, you get another one, right? Now, I don't know if that would mean that we can skip another Hive champ later down the line somewhere. I don't know, but there's no point to do that at any point now anyways. There's only two barriers that I would need to skip from this point. So what I've just said doesn't really matter. But it is an interesting thought, because you're getting an extra champ here. Your goal is to try and defend the champ, if anything, because the longer the champ is alive, the Scorn one, the longer the shriekers are open, and the longer you can do damage without getting damaged from the Hive Ogres and stuff, because they can hit you from up here. If you play back far enough, they won't, though, of course. Wish Ender will do some good damage. Now, we are using Kinetic Surge. Now, why am I using Kinetic Surge when we have overcharged weapons? So overcharged weapons will give you your kinetic weapon a buff if you match your surge. For me, it's Strand Surge, but it's bugged. It only works sometimes. I think it only works with Void, because I saw somebody using Wish Ender with a Void subclass doing more damage than me. So I don't know. I think well, it is bugged. I've been told it is. So it's worth using a surge on your boots, anyways, because you got countercharge this season. So when you do stun a champ, or you do pick up an Orb of Light, you've got a kinetic surge. It's only one, right? Which we could have ran free, but here's why you don't want to run free surges, is because you want recuperation on. And you want Arc Scavenger on, so that you're getting plenty of heavy, and the recuperation's really good for when you need to pick up orbs at the boss, and the boss is shooting at you, and you try to run around for orbs, you'll get health regen. So that's better to me than running triple surges. So you've really got to micromanage every single thing. You've got to know all these details that most of you won't know or care about too much. You won't really do the build, or you'll think you've done a build and you're missing some key components, and you may be going in all DPS, but you're forgetting about the survivability factor. You've got to calculate both situations, right? You've got to think about the entire thing. Don't be one single-minded, right? One-dimensional. That's what a lot of you have a problem with. You're all one-dimensional, and you don't. This is what separates a bad solo player from a decent one, is not being so one-dimensional with everything, and thinking about the entirety of the run. What's the possible risks of death and all that stuff? So this is showing you an exploit. So we didn't need to do this, to be honest, for phase 1. I didn't need to do this for phase 1. I didn't need to do it for I didn't do it for phase 2. I only did it for phase 1. But I guess this is showing you how the exploit works. So first of all, the statue, when you're facing the statue, it's on the right hand side. This is the right hand side of the map if you are facing towards the statue. If you're looking away from the statue, then obviously it's the left. But for the purpose of this video, facing the statue, it's the right hand side cup, because the left hand side cup, fun fact, does not work. And yes, we're literally to that level of you need to literally be in the right zone exactly, and if you're not, it won't work. So you need to follow every single step. The next step is that you hug the cup and the back wall. So you're at the back side of the cup, hugged that cup on the left. You hug it, and you're crouched. You never ever stand up at any time. Right, you never use a Shackle Grenade, you never use a super, all you do is use Wish Ender. Now you can do light arrows or heavy arrows. To be honest with you, they're both similar. But what I was worried about is, does a light arrow or a heavy arrow aggro the boss? Like, does it push the boss back? Sometimes he will get pushed back. So, like right here. But yeah, that was an example of it you just saw. So he got pushed back a little bit because there's a sort of secret modifier in the game that stops GM ads being staggered as much as a standard ad. Because I'd done this test on the standard Lightblade strike, and he kept getting staggered, whereas on GM he doesn't get staggered, right? So, well, he will eventually after so long. So this is what you want to keep doing your damage, but when you get to E, the letter E on his HP bar, ads will spawn. This is what I've noticed with this exploit. Every time there's an ad phase, the boss will freak out. So you need to make sure you equip your glaive. As soon as you get to E, right, be ready for your glaive, because there is a possibility that he'll do arc damage blasts at you. But if he does do that, put your guard up. Put your guard up. He hasn't done that because this boss is in a de-aggroed form. This means that he's sort of sleeping at the minute, and he's not really... He's aggroed on us, but he's not, like, super pissed off with anything, right? Whereas, if you didn't do this the exact way that I said, where you jump here before the boss spawns in, you need to jump here before the boss spawns in. If the boss sees you, and then you jump in here, he will just spam his arc attack. So you need to be exact. This might be better to be done on a Night Stalker for most people, especially when the Void Surge is coming up, and that's going to be this next reset. So it might be better for you to do it on, for some people to do it on Night Stalker, because you can invis, de-aggro the boss. Boss kind of doesn't know where you are. Come to the cup area, crouch, wait for boss to come, and then just keep using your bow on his toe, like this. like I say, I sometimes do the fully charged shots, sometimes the light shots. But I didn't need to do it for phase one because phase one is not threatening, but it is teaching you, I suppose, on how the exploit works. Obviously, we'll get the boss to a third. When you do this, though, you've got to know the dangers of this. Because we have exploited phase one, we have 2 waves of Thrall, 1 wave of Curse Thrall, 2 Arc Knights, and a Lightblade Warrior. So you need to jump out of there as soon as possible. As soon as that boss goes away, start running around the map. Because this is going to be quite dangerous. This is why we're on Strand. This is my whole idea, because on one hand, the boss isn't a factor, but now the ads are more of a threat than they would be if the boss was just up and alive. Because we would actually take each stage, each phase as it comes, and just clear the ads and stuff. Whereas on this way of doing it, that ain't working like that. So you need to know how this strategy works. You just need to keep running around. See, what I didn't account for on this run, because this was my first run of doing this strategy, right? I had done other strategies before this, so this wasn't my first clear, but this was my first run when I done the exploit. I didn't account for the Lightblade Warriors sitting down on the bottom side of the map instead of jumping up. The reason why that's a problem to me right now is because even if I pop a super, the Curse Thrall will all explode and I could die. So right now I'm evaluating my risk of death. And I'm thinking, well, it's not worth it right now, especially 34 minutes in, to go down there and just pop a super and think that I'm going to just kill... I would kill him. But if there's like 6, 7 Curse Thrall, can I tank that into my super? The answer to the question is I don't know. Plus, they teleport the Curse Thrall. It's just something they do. So I wasn't willing to take the risk of just go down right now and pop my super. There's no point. It's a longish run anyways. So instead, we'll just do some damage as we go along. Right? Use some rockets here and there, because that's what the rocket's on for. It's there for emergencies. It's there for damage and move, because that's what it's all about with Lightblade. Nothing really is good in Lightblade, because everything you do in Lightblade requires you to do damage and move. That's why likes of Osteostrigger, Quicksilver Storm, Wishender, all those types of weapons are like a top pick. Because you can't literally, you can't just stand in a rift or something, like if you're on a warlock or whatever. You can't just stand somewhere unless you're in a super. You just can't. So this is where you've got to learn the room. The room is even shaped that way. Look at it. It's a circular dome. It's designed for you to be doing map rotation. This is actually how they want you to do the fight. They don't want you to cheese his foot like I did. I know that, but I'm not too fussed. But they do want the combat to be like this, because it's like this by design. My only problem with Lightblade is I don't mind a fight like this. Damage and move, damage and move. But what I don't like is the design of him. And I've said this multiple times. Alak Hul in D1, he is a Destiny 1 boss. The original Destiny 1 boss was a melee-based boss in a darker room. Now, granted, this room isn't dark. It's obviously light, so there's a little bit of difference there. But this boss, I believe, should have only been melee-based. At the very least, only melee-based when you're here. Right? That would be a healthy combat experience, because that would mean that it gives players a chance to deal with barriers. Just give them a damn minute. Sometimes you're just not getting a damn minute with this boss. Especially the amount of arc damage that he does to you can be quite ridiculous. The golden rule is never start to do damage to the boss whilst he raises his arm to do the arc blast. Almost never ever do this. It's a chance of risk of death, and there's a high risk of it. Just never do it. It's as simple as that. You should never be doing it. That's how bad it is. But like, if he was only melee based, I don't think people really understand what I'm saying. But if he was only melee based, this entire GM would feel a lot better than what it does to solo. I know it's not balanced around solo, and I know it's balanced around fire team, which fire team wise it makes a lot more sense. But why not have different AI then for solo slash fire team? There's already an example of that in Glassware when you're capturing a point. Why can't we have it for this? Because I really do think it's an issue. The fact that the boss has the best ranged attack in the game for Nightfall boss, apart from maybe Cydia, which you've saw me post that exploit, right? So maybe Cydia beats him just, but other than that, he has the best range attack and he has the best CQC moves. So he's not balanced very well at all. I don't think so. I know there want some difficult GMs in the game, but as I say, I think it's a little ridiculous. So we pop super. He was already one shot, but the purpose of the super there was to get a finisher kill with the super resistance, so that if Exploding Curse for all do teleport on us or do the explosion, then at least we're in a super and we should be able to tank it. That was a good super pop, even though it didn't do a lot. It finished him off, which, because you saw how long I was running around, I was patient enough to run around the map for all that time. He started to jump up in the end, if you noticed. That was because we defeated a portion of the ads. So if there's a ton of ads up like this, then he's going to do that. I actually recommend you don't cheese phase 1. I think phase 1, I think even phase 1 and phase 2 does not need to be exploited. I did not exploit phase 2, I only exploited phase 3. Phase 3 is legitimate, like you do want to exploit that because the whole run is based on doing that, because we killed the 2 first champions when we spawned in on the GM for the purpose of skipping the final 2 barriers. So don't cheese phase 1 as long as you know the jump mechanic, which you're gonna need to know that anyways. Whether you cheese or not, you need to know the jump mechanic with this boss fight. You need to know exactly the jumping up and down and the chances of him doing his arc blast even though he's close to you. So more advanced information about the boss is that when he's within like 5 to 10 meter range of you, he goes in a melee mode. At least on phase 1 he's in melee mode. He's slow walking and he won't do his arc blast. After so long he will start to do his arc blast, but within that 5 to 10 meter range he won't. Once you get outside those ranges, he goes in his range mode where he just keeps firing his arc blast. You don't want to fight him too much at that range, and if you are, only do damage to him when he hasn't damaged you at all or fired any arc blasts. So if it's literally just 1 or 2 wish ender shots, do that, move, shoot, move, shoot, move. I know it's only 1 wish ender shot, but wish ender does a lot of damage. Don't forget the amount of damage that it does. So even though it might feel tedious to you to, I've only done like a little bit of damage in the last minute, it doesn't really matter though, does it? You're still staying alive, and that's the goal. So what I'm trying to do here is, I was going to exploit phase 2, I didn't end up doing that, which actually worked in my benefit, to be honest, in the end. But what I'm trying to do here is bait the Arc Shielded Knight to the exploit zone to kill him, to quickly jump in the exploit zone before the boss can see us. This is proven difficult at the time because this knight just is not cooperating with me at all. So my idea is to come over here then kill him, but he just keeps aggroing and de-aggroing. The reason why is because he's the last enemy alive. So the playstyle of the knight is more passive than usual. If there was 2 of them, they both push, right? If there's 1 of them, then he'll push within a certain radius, but then he just keeps jumping back up, so he's annoying me at this minute in time. So I am thinking at this minute in time, let's do the phase 2 legit, because I know how to do it. I know the working mechanics to do it legit, phase 2 and 3, for that matter. So that's what I end up going with, right? Because he just keeps de-aggroing. On phase 3 I managed to do it, so I end up managing to shackle him, then go to exploit zone, then drop down. That's the actual strat to do, but we'll do that on phase 3. It's better viewing, it's better watchability for the video anyways if you see the actual phase 2 being executed properly. So there's 4 barriers. There's actually 6 more barriers to kill. Well, not for us, there's only 4. So we only have interest in killing the 4 barriers that spawn on phase 2. So Lightblade is on a dial. Think of it like a 12-hour clock. Wherever you kill a champ, say you kill him at 3, dial 3. I'm not saying this specifically, but say you did, then a champion will always spawn in. You can actually dictate where the champion spawns. So I'm spawning the champs on left-hand side, that exact zone. You need to do it on the exact zone. We're doing a Shackle Grenade straight away, then a rocket, then a super. The reason for the rocket is because it's going to help with our damage. We actually nearly killed 2 champs. I was low HP though, so I was not wanting to overcommit. Don't get greedy. I could have killed that champion there, but I would have run out of super, then the boss would have come over and killed us. So the right play there was to cut my losses, accept that I've got 1 barrier down and most of the acolytes, and that's actually a really well spent super, because that's everything killed, apart from maybe 2 acolytes, which can be quickly wish-ended down like that. And then we're just on our map rotation at that point. So there's 2 ways of doing this bit as well, is that you could literally just run around the map, do pot shots with wish ender to build up super energy, because just pay attention to my super energy on the left hand side, on how much super energy I get. Within literally 3 minutes of doing this map rotation, I could have a super and then super the second barrier if I wanted to play absolute safe. You don't need to do that because we have Strand on. So this is what you can do, is do your pot shots, right? Always be aware of where the boss is. See, the beauty with the Strand Hunter is we've got 2 shackles. So we reset the shackle buff on our second nade, right? And then we're just going from middle. We're hopping between middle. And this stops the boss from doing his range attack. It means that we can safely, comfortably take down the barrier. That only really works when the barrier jumps to mid, which the champ will go through phases. Sometimes he'll hug the boss, sometimes he'll rotate around the map with you, but there will be an opening chance where he does go to mid. The best bet is just to keep jumping from middle like this. Eventually the barrier will go to mid, then you do your map rotation, pot shots with wish ender, get a good shackle grenade on or 2, and that's how you take down the final barrier for this phase without the use of a super. But if you really wanted to, you could just keep running around the map, keep shooting the boss, don't get him below half HP though, then have a super. But the risk of doing that would be you wouldn't have a super for phase 2. Sorry, for the second half of phase 2. But if I'd picked up orbs earlier, I would have had that, but obviously those have disappeared by now. Which it doesn't really matter, but that's how you deal with them. That's how I recommend. Use the super for the first barrier, try and take out as many acolytes as you can, then run around the map, and then just pick your opportunity to take down the second barrier. But never overcommit to damage. If the barrier has to reset, if you have to let a barrier reset to save your life, then do it. But this is the difficult thing that people are going to have doing. I've saw so many people fail here, is because they can't multitask the boss and a barrier champion solo. And it is, to be honest, it is very demanding. I think it's a little bit too demanding. But I've already said why it is, because the boss has a ranged attack. He's just too lethal, both ranged and close. He's the most threatening GM boss that we have. Even harder than any Battleground GM boss that you can think of. Right? Even harder than that. At all times you need to be thinking about what you're doing. Especially on a hunter with the hunter jumps. If you're not good at hunter jumps, good luck doing this trick with the going between the middle. You might not want to be doing that. You might want to do a Strand Titan then instead, because the movement's a bit better on a Strand Titan as opposed to the Strand Hunter. So it would be just whatever you want that way. So the second phase, this is where I deal with it. Like I said, wherever you kill, wherever you get the boss to half HP and break his head off, that's where the second set of barriers will spawn. It's based on your position. So this is how I do it. I actually break his head off from middle, center, mid. This will then spawn a barrier from the middle door on right hand side. No, it'll be the left hand side. So we get our shackle, rocket, then super, and that deals that deals with one of the barriers straight away. But you need a super. You need to have a super already. Same thing again. A really well spent super. We even shackled the barrier there to get away safely, and we took out pretty much all of the acolytes. There might be one acolyte left, plus one barrier dealt with, and that's what makes it so good. You'll have similar results with Strand Titan. The difference. This is a close death. This is double arc resist helping us. It was just unlucky. We were getting hit back. We were mobile enough. We just kept getting hit. On a Titan, you wouldn't have got hit as much there. It's just the Hunter. The Hunter is sluggish. Isn't it funny? Because it's the mobile class. But yeah, it's the slowest of the three classes. It was just literally by chance he hit us with every arc shot. The RNG of that. But arc resist and concussive dampener saved our life. So now we're back to map rotation. You're pretty much, you're not unkillable, but there's a 90% chance of you not dying if you just keep running around the map like this. Every now and then we'll evaluate to see where the barrier is. Right? Remember, don't ever attack him when he's raising his arm at you. Sometimes I do, sometimes I break that rule, but generally you shouldn't. Like you need to be playing as passive as possibly with your damage. Never overcommit, because that's where you'll get your death. Is overcommitting damage. The patience factor, if you haven't got patience, this GM isn't for you. It's just as simple as that. To be honest, most of the GMs nowadays aren't. Like, there's a lot of patience. The Battleground GMs, Lightblade, Glassware, those type of GMs, they require patience. And if you haven't got it, it's not for you. Just do fire team runs. You don't need to solo it. The game's not made for solo. It isn't for you, especially if you're not doing YouTube. What's the point in you soloing it? For a GM like this, you don't need to. Unless you're willing to learn the trials and tribulations of it, then that's fine, go ahead and do it. But it's only for, I think these are only for, these type of GMs are exclusive for people who are actually into it. If you actually looked into the stats of how many people has actually soloed this, it would be probably 1%. God, if they think, if Destiny said that only 1% of players have 3 characters, then you better bet it's probably 1% for people who have soloed this GM or similar GMs that like it. So it's for the people who really just want to do it, and that's really what it comes down to. Is if you really want to do this, are you into it? Are you bored of Destiny? Because if you are, then this is going to help you be engaged. But it's also going to make you rage quit as well, because you're going to have to learn it. You ain't getting it first run. But it is going to help you if you watch somebody's video in entirety, not just mine, but some of the more well-rounded players watch those videos on how they done it, especially quicker runs and stuff like that. Watch maybe an arc run, because arc is really good for Lightblade. It's just the thing with arc is it isn't doing what Shackle Grenade's doing for me. See, the whole thing about this is, the reason why it's so good is that as soon as we need to kill a barrier, we can just shackle super. That's so consistent. Chaos Reach won't do that for you. You'll have to do some damage with a rocket, a pulse grenade, get a shield break, then pop super. Whilst all that stuff's going on, the boss may shoot you with an arc or creep up on you and melee you. So you need to be exact with it. You need to have a strategy. It's whatever you want to do. Arc will have a better neutral game than Strand in terms of arc soul and pulse grenades doing insane damage and quicker, like the run would be quicker and everything. But that's what I'm saying with the Strand, is its utility right now is better, I think, than arc. So we're just doing the jump mechanic. So this is how you would do it. How I'm doing phase 2 right now is literally the same as phase 3. But again, fruits of our labour, we've already done it. We've already killed the 2 barriers at the start. We don't need to clear the 2 barriers at the end. We can skip them. Still get platinum rating every time. Works every time. Because we've got 2 free tokens. And that's when we spent them. We're spending them now, shall we say. We're skipping the ones that we need to skip. So the boss is just about to break to the final phase. Make sure you're on right hand side. Right hand side is where the Lightblade warrior spawns, on this side every time, by the way. So we'll do a shackle, a rocket, some glaive ammo. Be patient and wait. for the Lightblade warrior to come back up on the top of the map. You don't want to take him on the bottom, because that's where Curse for All are and all that stuff. You want him up top before you super. If he doesn't come up top, wait until he does. These knights will not one-shot you in a super. So you see the benefit of having a Roman super. Without a super, they're one-shotting us. In a super, they're not. That's what makes it more so consistent. But just be careful, as I say, when there's two knights up. You may underestimate this little section here with the knights. So don't stand somewhere elevated where the other knight can't kill you, so that you can actually take down the first knight. Because you don't want to kill the second knight when you're out of position. If you do that, you've messed up your entire run, and then you're gonna have to do phase 3 legit. If you're doing that, that's fine. I've already showed you how to do that. It's literally the same as the second half of phase 2. What I've just done. You play it exactly the same, but you need to know your champ in advance. Your champ placement. You need to know where is he spawning. Most of you really don't know how it works. Just pick somewhere, right, and have that your champ location every time you do it. Get into a routine. Don't just let them spawn up, because once you let them spawn up, they split up, the champs. The ads split up. Then you're like in no man's land at that point, because then you've got a boss chasing you. You've got acolytes shooting at you, and that's where your deaths will be. But mine's structured. I knew exactly where the champs were going to spawn. And I think it's a mechanic badly explained. No one has explained the mechanic. Only ATP has explained it. Which, may I add, was a long time ago. So people aren't really aware of that video. There's no one else explained it. Not one person has explained how champ mechanics work on this. I had to remind myself when I started redoing this run this week. I had to remind myself how it works. I actually went into the standard Lightblade strike and evaluated what the spawns were where I stood, where the Arc Knights spawned. Because remember, on standard strikes there's no champ. But what you must understand is champs replace arc shielded knights, so it works the exact same. So I picked my champ placement in a strike, tested it, so then I knew in advance when I come here where the champ's exactly located. So it's always right. It's always the right hand side one in front of us, and then left hand to the left hand side door, middle. That's how I know it. So I know every time, and it's like I say, it's not RNG where they spawn. It's based on your position. It's like a clock. Wherever you are on that clock is where the champs. You can dictate where they spawn. So dictate them to the best place. So make sure these are the next steps you need to do. Get the Arc Shielded Knight one shot. Clear out all Curse for All. Make sure that they are all dead, because we know Curse for Alls can teleport. So the way of checking this is just going around in middle. Check that there isn't any at all. There isn't. I'm 100%. You don't want Curse for Alls messing up your strat here, because now what we're going to do is do what we was wanting to do on phase 2. Which on phase 2 didn't work, right? But you learn from stuff. Right, this knight was just annoying me. He was wanting me just to sort of be one-shot by him, but he was just pissing me off at this time. So this is what you do, right? You got to aggro him. Don't let him melee you, because obviously he's a one-shot. He's a flat-out one-shot. So you need to coax him over here, right? But the way to do that is to be close enough to him for him to run after you, but not far away enough for him to jump back up. But whilst also managing that he doesn't one-shot you. So you can understand how quite annoying it is. But the reason why we're doing this is because this will de-aggro the boss for us on phase 3. If you don't do this, the boss will aggro on your location on the exploit, and your exploit may fail. I am fail-safing the exploit by doing this. If you do this, you will fail-safe it, because it will mean that the boss knows where you are but isn't fully aggroed on you. I wish there was a bar in Destiny to tell you how far enemies are aggroed. There should be an extra bar, I think, an aggro bar, because there is a mechanic in the game, but it's yet again another it's a badly misunderstood mechanic, and no one really knows how it works. Well, they do. Well, I do know how it works, but it's hard to explain to a person on how it works. But I wish there was a visual indication on the enemies, a aggro bar above them, right? To show you how aggravated they are on you, or de-aggroed. And that bar would decrease and increase depending on the player's actions. And there should be some sort of bar, but they're never going to add something like that until you get some sort of new game. Or an uplift on D2. But we've only just really had an uplift, so they're not going to do that, are they? I don't know what they're going to do, but what we're trying to do now is shackle him. Obviously, he was shackled in a bad position. We couldn't get the kill on him. Like I say, I know it seems dumb what I'm doing, but it's absolutely required. It meant phase 3 was a breeze for me. So I know we have wasted 5 minutes doing this, right? But eventually we do get that the Arc Knight. See, we're standing slightly too... No, actually we got him there, I think. So yeah, we shackled him in the best place. We'll rocket him to finish. Crouch behind the cup immediately. So the boss spawns up immediately as the Arc Knight as the Arc Knight dies, but the boss doesn't know where I am. It's the same effect as a Night Stalker going invis, basically, because I've just immediately crouched in the exploit zone. It stops the boss from shooting arc arrows. If he did, I would raise my shield and survive with the glaive, right? But it just means that now we can exploit the final phase, which is the most difficult phase, because the boss increases his movement, his speed. He's more aggressive on phase 3 than he is on phase 1, or the first half of phase 2. When he freaks out, if he does get that glaive up, the next phase of enemies will be at the top side of A on his HP bar. That's when you need to know if he's going to freak out. Because his AI sometimes does change when an additional enemy wave of enemies spawn up. It's just a change, right? It's a glitch in the matrix. When that happens, that's when the boss sometimes freaks out, but he didn't. Also, I experienced a bug. I'm doing triple damage with Wishender here, or double. Slow it down, you'll see the numbers. I don't know why. They ain't even fully charged shots. They're only light shots. And I'm doing crazy amount of damage. I don't know why, but it's a bug that's happened. I'll take it. But if this bug doesn't happen for you, the pro bug with the Wishender, then it doesn't matter. You're still going to get it done if you follow all the rules. So you can see, as I say, look, that shouldn't be doing that much damage. That's doing more damage than a fully charged shot. Strange. I can't tell you why that's happened. First I've seen. But that will be a solo GM on Strand. How to safely do it on this. Hope you enjoy. Thank you.